Here's today's big gravy boat. It's 2007 Highlander. One of my friends, he's an electrician, but he helped me with my solar. So it's getting, as you can see, rear struts, the full quick strut assemblies, which is kind of the way to do it. I believe these are Monroe brand, so they're name brand. Just bolt in, don't have to have the spring compressor, rear pads and rotors, and shim kit, and then front quick struts as well. And these ones you definitely would want to do a quick strut because you got a few different components that wear. The strut itself wears out, and that's what gives it the bouncy ride. And that's his main concern. When he loads this up with more electrical supplies, he's hitting bumps, and he's saying when he hits a bump, it gets a little squirrely, out of control. And these struts, typically when they fail, they'll leak, so that's the actual strut cartridge that fails. But additionally, the springs tend to get worn. He's also got that concern where it'll bottom out if he hits a big enough bump. So I'm not just going to sell him struts, because the strut is the damper on the suspension that controls the bounciness. It should oscillate. You hit a bump, that's it. It shouldn't keep on bouncing. That's a strut. But that has nothing to do with it bottoming out. That would be the spring. So really just based on symptoms, this is the best one. And because it's a front, there's actually a bearing here. When you turn, this bearing on top has to turn as well. And those are pretty notorious for making noise and starting to bind up and stuff. And then front pads, shims, and rotors. So this one's and an oil change. So this is really a gravy boat right here. Like, none of this work is difficult. It's going to take a little bit of time, but this is easy work, and these are wear items. So this job would pay really good labor time. I'm helping him out. I'm not charging him anything, but he helps me out when I need him. So in a way, maybe we are charging each other's labor. But for all these parts, oil change, brakes, struts, about $700. And I do like Rock Auto because I can order my own stuff and I don't have to go whatever. They deliver it right here. And this is tons of boxes, and the price is a little bit better. So let me get jamming on this here. Oh, and as a side note, this is a timing belt engine, and this timing belt was done at 102K. So now that I'm spending a little bit more time with it, I think I'm going to tell him, hey, let's do a timing belt, water pump, the whole kit, and we'll also do the drive belts at that time. But this was the main priority for him, so we ordered this stuff without me even really inspecting the vehicle. But now that I got it in my care, I'm the professional here in this equation. The customer's going to tell me their concerns, but had I not thought to check out that timing belt, I wouldn't have made a recommendation. And if his timing belt breaks, if his water pump seizes and breaks the timing belt, or if the timing belt is just 10 years and 100,000 miles old and breaks, it'll damage this engine. I wouldn't have been a good steward of his money selling him $700 worth of stuff and letting him think everything is fine and dandy, when in the meantime, he's got a major maintenance that needs to happen right here. So, you're going to do the work professionally, but I'm also going to be professional in advising him, hey, let's get this handled. And I don't know what I'm going to charge him for that. That'll probably make a separate video. But these timing belts aren't horribly difficult, but it's still a bunch of labor, so TBD. All right, just got this side apart. You can see a couple little tips. I keep my parts all clean, organized. The bolts I took off, starting with the lug nuts, kind of go from top to bottom. The strut bolts, I set exactly how they came out, so that way I don't forget which way they face. And I kind of keep the tools right here in the little tray. So I pulled the strut out. I was just really trying to get hammering on it, so I didn't show much. But my next step would be bring the strut over here and match it up, because the left to right can be different. And I'm wearing the camera. This is probably going to be a little shaky, but if we look, this is for the caliper hose bracket. and that's for the sway bar link. This one's a no. This one is a yes. So I'm just going to grab that and swing it over there. Bye-bye. Alright, so try to do this without shaking too much. We get rid of the sticker. The sticker's really there to warn the DIY person not to take the upper nut loose. Leave it tight. Alright, and then the other thing is I do one side at a time. That way it's really fresh in my mind how it came out. So like this wheel speed sensor hose or wire, the harness, I know that the strut needs to go behind this, just paying attention how I took it apart. So that's going to help. And then what I've done to prepare myself is I've got the nuts right there. Definitely struggling with the lighting. So that way when I get it hung up in the three studs make the 3 holes, I can just spin a nut on real quick. And so this is probably going to be shaky because I'm really going to need both hands. But I'll show you what I do. Okay, let's angle this up quite a bit, probably. Now I'm just making sure that I'm clearing this harness correctly. Kind of get stuck on the coils as we go. Get it a little higher. Now I'm going to eye it up. Swing up to the top. Yeah, you can't see nothing, I know that. Just give me a second. Give me just a second. I'm going to get a nut started. Okay, check it out. So I was really just trying to feed it up through the top, grab a stud, but a couple little things I didn't really describe. I don't start on the bottom because once I know I got the top started, I could turn it, right? Because these front struts have a bearing in them. So no big deal, now that's aligned. Now, with my extremely bright sun behind me, every car's a little bit different, but typically, if you're gonna do a strut, you're gonna need to pull, obviously the wheel, the caliper, which is here, the caliper bracket, which is here, the rotor. Now you may be able to do it without pulling the rotor, but a lot of times pulling the rotor helps give you some more room. And then the sway bar link right here was kind of a pain in my butt. You can see it's going to be up in that hole, but those tend to spin. There's a couple tricks. If you look real close, there's an Allen in the center. So you could actually put a wrench on the nut, put an Allen in the center, hold the Allen, and turn the nut. But a lot of times what I just do, I'll spray it with a penetrant, and I'll run the nut in and out. It'll clean up. This one is a little rusty, so I had to vice grip it from the backside. Sometimes the backside has flats for a wrench, but typical Toyotas don't, unfortunately. And then kind of get that stuff dealt with. Handle the brake caliper hose. Figure out a good way to hang your caliper, and then make sure you got a lot of slack in the wheel speed sensor harness. You could disconnect from down here and physically pull the sensor out of the housing. This one was a little rusty though, so that was not my first choice. If it's really clean, it's a nice option. If it's rusty, sometimes these you'll try to break them loose and they'll break in half, and then somebody's on the hook for a wheel speed sensor. So let's get a lot of nice slack. And now that I get this up here, I'm just going to buzz the 3 nuts up on the top down. And then this steering knuckle is the bigger, tighter bolts. So these two, this happens to be 22 millimeter. The nuts on this side always break the nut loose, and then you can spin the bolt out. And then when we get ready to stab them back, I could show you how to stab them back in right now. It's a little bit of finesse. So normally I would tighten up those 3 bolts in the front, but we'll be all right for this time. All right, so I'm moving, I'm supporting, I'm wiggling, I'm jiggling. I'm just trying to get them in there, and then make note of which way they go, remember? And also be careful because it's down here near the axle boot. You don't really want that strut slamming on the boot. You'll rip a boot. And then you'll, if you're new, you'll be like, oh, that wasn't my fault. That boot was leaking. but it could be your fault. If you don't touch it, you didn't do anything wrong. If you did touch it and it didn't leak, you got lucky. If it did leak, you screwed up. So this, as you can see, can be a little bit of a pain. So what I'm gonna do to help myself, use my nice long screwdriver kind of as a pry bar, pry it into place real quick. Okay, should be real close there, real close, very close. Once you get one, the second one's not that hard. So that one's almost in. Now, you could do this a couple ways. I could bang on the end of this bolt, but probably that's not preferred. So the more preferred method is going to be grab this, load it up on my gun, and this is really just massaging it in. So it's not threading. It's just going to pull itself in a little easier doing this. Right, as you can see. Then I'll get the nut on. And then this part seems kind of silly, but when you do this, hold the bolt side with a wrench. See, it didn't hurt that bolt at all. But I'm going to put my wrench over here. I'm going to switch my gun over to this side. But I'm not going to do this until I get the other bolt in. So get both bolts, get all the stuff landed. Don't tighten one without the other because you might not be able to line it up. So get this other bolt in here. Same thing, I gotta just finesse it a little. Okay. Pretty much where we start everything. I never try to load it from the gun. Alright, so that angle is gonna be a little bit of a challenge, so I'll just do this one on camera. The nut. Going on the nut side, wrench on the holding side. Look up the torque spec on these. It's going to be high. It's going to be really high, like probably over 150 foot-pounds. So that's at least a start. I'll go through and torque those, and then same type of thing with this sway bar link. You know, I'm gonna have to wrestle it in a little bit, pry it down, get it to pop into that hole. But in the meantime, I really need to get these other nuts on, buzz those down, and then I like to pretty much tighten everything and then go through and hit the stuff with the torque wrench, so that way I'm still pretty fast. As you saw, that was drawing it up. That's okay, just gotta be careful with that. Alright, so that's going to be close. I'm going to look up the spec. Sometimes I'll torque that one for good measure, even though it was a quick strut. But this is the general idea on the strut. It's not real technical. The back ones are probably going to be a pain because I'm going to have to pull interior panels. Here's another cool little tip. So I didn't have a perfect memory of these couple, but if you look, I'm trying to get in the right light here, zoom in. This has a mark on it right there that's outlined, not round. It looks more like the shape of this part for the caliper bracket hose. That's a better view. So when I'm determining which one was on top and which one's on bottom, I'm sometimes going to look kind of at the marks. This one took the bolt, which means this piece is going to go first. This piece is going to go second, and then the bolt's going to go in. Is it critical? You know, I really don't know. That's not my place to say. But if I can put it back exactly how it was, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I'm working on right now. So this one first. All right. This one second. Of course, it's going to be a little tough. Almost really need a second person just to hold the camera, but that's not my priority is really get the car fixed, so some other people will do obviously much better videos. So just like that, I'll get it started and then I'll buzz it in. So once I got those things buttoned up, I just buzzed up the sway bar link. it's time to hang the rotor. So I just pop the rotor, and I've done other brake videos, but the general rule of thumb, if you get the rotor on, you're ready to do the bracket, go through and clean the bracket all up, get the new shims on. You can pull the guide pins. These ones are actually pretty well greased, but you know, I do some of the greasing right now. Get a little bit silicone paste in there. Get this on, get the bolts torqued from the back, which were those couple 17s up here. And then I'll hang the caliper, the pads, get them all situated like this. Then I'll slide the caliper on. Caliper piston will need to be compressed, but as you can see, I've already got it. It should be there or real close. And then this caliper, you want to be mindful. If you hang it really bad from the hose, it'll damage the hose internally. So don't let it swing and free fall. They make caliper hangers, or you could rig it up with like a clothes hanger or something. That's preferred. So I'm just gonna slam that out and we'll move on. All right, so something interesting just happened. I was going over to check out some in the back, and I got a little surprise came out. And I had this parked outside for a couple days. So that's the reason. But let me show you what I got here. Look at this little guy. This little creep right here. Where you going? Come on over. Come on over. Look at that guy. It's just a gopher snake. It's a good one. Guess it serves me right for stinking leaving it outside. So I'm just gonna open the garage door and get this baby out of here. Yeah, get out of there. Those are my parts. Come on. I got a pretty good eye for snakes, and this has the coloring of a rattlesnake, but it's no rattlesnake, so no need to be scared here. Just, you can try to bite me, but it ain't gonna work out real well, you little dork. Turn around. Wow, he does hiss. I never had one get so aggressive. That's funny. Go, go, go. Go, little buddy. Go, go, go. Look at a little further. Yeah. 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 Wow, that was fun. Yeah. That's cool. Look at that guy. Yeah. You gotta go. Get out of there. That's fun. Alright, so what really prompted that whole thing? What I typically do, I match my parts up. As you can see, I got a mismatch here. That new rotor's too big. And I know when I put it in on the Rock Auto site, it asked for front wheel drive or all wheel drive, so I was just popping under there to see. It's got a rear drive shaft and rear axles. So it's all wheel drive, but whatever, something went wrong in the listing. This would be the negative of getting them online. And this car's already apart, so that sucks. So I'm gonna shoot down to probably like my local O'Reilly's and just grab a couple rotors, and then I'll have to return the Rock Auto ones. Total bummer, so I gotta go do that. Alright, so just getting back from the local auto parts store. Lay them together. Same size, hub pattern's the same. So now we're good. And I also took a second look, and those brake pads were incorrect as well. So now that I got correct parts, I really need to get jamming on this, because I really budgeted for this job a few hours, and I just spent an hour going to get the right parts and back. So I'm gonna speed it up. All right, all back together, degreased, cleaned, lubed the slides, lubed where the pads, the abutment shims, they'll call them. I like to put a little grease here, a little grease here, a little grease where the piston sits. All torqued. All that stuff is torqued. I'm gonna get the wheel back on. The left front is gonna be the same as the right front, and then I'm gonna jump on the back, and I'll catch you there. Also, while I was under there, knocked out the oil change. As you can see, I spilled a little bit. This one's easy though. Spin on filter right in the front. 14 millimeter drain pan plug, and then I just got to clean up a little bit. It took an even 5 quarts of oil, so rolling with it. I was going to skip this side, but this one has a pretty cool little lesson. So, one, you could pull this caliper and compress it with a C-clamp or a brake piston compressor, whatever. But the way that I do it, which is only if I'm replacing pads and rotors, I actually put a really beefy flathead screwdriver through this hole. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch the tip of it on the rotor. Then I'm going to pull this over. And as I do, it's going to float the caliper this way. And that piston is going to hit the back pad, and the back pad's going to hit the rotor. And I'm just basically going to pry it compressed. This one was very hard. I couldn't get it to move, which could indicate seized piston, could indicate restriction in the flex hose. Either of those are possible, but that's not what's wrong with this one. I was able to get it with way more force than I should have to put on it. But what I found was, check this pin out right here, moves. This one, I can't get it to move. That sucker is locked up solid. So that's actually going to cause premature wear on the pads. This one may have been in its early stages, but if you look, this inner pad here on my right was worn a lot more than that outer pad. But this is probably fairly new, and it was going to keep getting worse. So the real fix is to free this pin up and then lube it. And if I can't free the pin up, I can purchase a new pin. So now I'm vice gripped, and I'm working it. Still can't really get it to slide out. Slowly but surely, maybe. And I see a lot of newer, less experienced techs will sell a caliper for this issue. And if the caliper comes with the bracket and the guide pins, it'll fix it. But the problem wouldn't have been the caliper. And I'm just, I'm trying to be efficient with this guy. So, man, I still can't get it out. I'm going to sell him what's needed, not what happened to fix it, even though I was kind of misdiagnosed. So this is the source of this issue. This caliper's fine, and this bracket's going to be savable. All right, I'm just about there. Okay, that explains everything. There should be a rubber bushing right here. And the only purpose of that rubber bushing is to make it so when you apply the brakes and release the brakes, it doesn't clunk due to like looseness on the pin. The pin fit is not perfectly tight in there. So that little bumper quiets that down, but you can see this one's rusty. It was probably not lubed well, and it's probably, I'm going to check that boot out, make sure the boot's good. But I'm pretty sure that rubber bushing is going to be stuck inside. So now I'm fishing, like probably with a little pick. I'll get that out. I'll clean this all up with a wire wheel. If that bushing is savable, that'd be good. If it's not, I could get a bracket, but it's pretty common practice to run it without the bushing. I'm not sure I would recommend that, but it's very common. Rubber bushing's back. Just had to fish it out. This is what I see a lot on these. If you don't use the correct type of grease, if you use like your basic petroleum-based grease, wheel bearing grease, whatever, it will swell that rubber up and the rubber will seize in there. This one just looked like it was just kind of seized up, and so I'm going to save it. I'm going to paint it with a silicone paste, or you could use disc brake caliper lube. But that one's looking good, and as you can see, I've already cleaned the bore and I've already polished the pin. So that's it's a rescued one. If you do a brake job and you don't take care of that, you didn't really do a brake job. You just kind of pad slapped it, or slap new parts on there. All right, but now I really got to get moving. Rear one's kind of the same. Caliper bracket, 14s. The caliper itself 14s. Caliper bracket looks like a 17. Sway bar and link right. Looks like again the wheel speed sensor. You got to be pretty mindful of that. And looks like probably they might be a little smaller. Similar size on these strut bolts. And the inside, the part that's always a mixed bag. This one's pretty easy actually. Pull these interior panels off. 4 of the same 14s up, 3 of the 14s up on top. So make the magic happen here. Doesn't seem like it's gonna be that big of a thing. Real similar on these back ones. Although you do not have to do anything with the brakes. You can get these bolts easily. This one, the top 3, and there's one that hid for me. back here, right here. That one held the hose. So I did get that one, and I just stabbed the new one in there. But this part's a little hard to do by yourself. You kind of want to get the top 3 studs lined up in the hole. And then you sort of need to lift this up and prop it up. So I got it propped on the impact gun right now. So that way I could come in here, keep the nuts right here. Now it's held just high enough where I was able to start these couple. Really, one's all you need. So I get the second one started. I'll draw it up. Once I draw this nut up, I can catch that other one. Here's a cool detail. I just put the new strut on this side, looking at just over 32, like 32 and a quarter. And the old strut, totally hammered bump stop. So that's a direct indication that that spring could be worn or it was overloaded. So we're not sure if it's overloaded or spring is weak. But if we compare it, now that's the new one, right? This one's still got the old one. Looking at 32. So with the new springs, this thing sits up 2 inches higher. So it was, in fact, it may very well be overloaded, but that spring was 100% weak. And that's was causing that bump stop to be worn out, and he was bottoming out. So that's why, like I said earlier in the video, I recommend the complete assemblies, not just the strut. We're looking good. So I just did the maintenance reset. I forgot I should have added that to the video. Basically, you jump in the car with engine off. We're gonna go key on and press this odometer button right here. On this particular one, you leave it on ODO. Turn it off. Press and hold. Turn the key on. It'll come up with these dots. And that's reset. So we'll take a quick look at it. Definitely sitting a little higher, a little better. I pump up the brakes. I'm gonna do a quick drive on it. Kind of burnishing the brakes a little bit. But it's a complete job. I really probably spent about 2.5 hours on it, but that's full speed, you know, which is why I don't do a lot of nice fancy videos. It's more lay the hammer and get her done. So I'm gonna check the oil. Oil level's good. Clean some stuff up. Torqued everything. It's good to go. Minus I'm gonna do a nice road test on it before I release it to the customer.